lagging. What are you doing?
Good enough can cost you the game, so stop settling. Wifinity is built for real life on base, so you can game without compromise. Posted somewhere new? Take your Wi-Fi with you, no hassle. Get fast, reliable Wi-Fi with Wifinity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off the first 3 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to, of course, the BFBS Pro League Season 2. It is Stage 2 for the Swiss stage kicking things off. And you know what? It was so good last time around. Apparently what the rumours said, they've decided to return both of us back. Pegasus, how are you doing?
Very, very good to get that invite yet again. Like you said, a bit surprising, but I'm happy regardless. It's a big day of action ahead, and it is actually my favorite format in all of Rocket League. It's the Swiss stage. One brutal best of 3, up to 5 rounds of Rocket League to be played for every single team, where half the herd is going to be culled for that main event.
I love it, Sarah. It's your favorite bracket. It's arguably the least for me. I prefer an old-fashioned league play, but we might as well see the Swiss bracket itself here, Pegasus, and briefly touch on our round 1 games that have been shaped up this evening here, and there's plenty to choose from, so I'll give you the first helpings. Where should we be having our eye on here?
Well, I always like to look near the lower end of a Swiss stage for those first rounds, because in essence, it always feels like that's where the closer matchups are. In this case, going from the bottom to top, you've got the RAF Nighthawks versus the Royal Navy Krakens. You've got the Mustangs taking on the Tridents. And then you've got a British Army Barmy derby between the Kestrels and the Merlins as well. As for the upper portions, I always feel like that the teams you expect to win very rarely get upset, but that could always happen after all.
Well, that certainly is true here, and you know, there's a fair few chunks of games here, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of time seeing plenty of familiar faces, a few new ones, of course, to the Swiss stage through today's action as well, and we'll break those down as the tournament commences, because we like a few more results here to give you context how things will end up and shake about. But we might as well touch on to our game that we will have streamed first here, the Nighthawks from the RAF and the Krakens from the Royal Navy. And Pegasus, as a matchup goes, it is a somewhat of a David versus Goliath, and by that I mean it's, you know, SSL's GC3s versus a GC2 team for our opening matchup. So in terms of quality, it's close, but there is still a difference.
Yeah, that difference, though, which I feel like can be somewhat negated by a best-of-3 format in comparison to your 5s and the 7s, because, of course, any ranks, I always describe it as your average in terms of skill. It's where the majority of your games are going to be. But, of course, in this case where the difference is so small, there is that potential for a pop-off from the lower rank side. And if they can manage to catch their opposing team off guard in the opening series, a best-of-3 format is the best time to do it.
Well, certainly so, and I'm sure the players are itching and ready to get going as well, too, in this best-of-3. So, Pegasus, where is your prediction going on this one?
Oh, look, I always struggle to go against the RAF. I really, really do. And it just feels like another one of those occasions. There's a player that I'm constantly looking at when it comes to these matchups, and it's Subi. I love the way that he can just completely morph himself to his teammates surrounding him. And Trinity and Bell are, by all means, no slouches.
Well, certainly so. The RAF Nighthawks into the blue, and the Royal Navy's very own Kraken in the orange. Best of three, same as yesterday's story in this sort of Swiss stage. The crucial bit about it there is, quite literally, you've got to win the opening game here, because if you don't here, it becomes a lot more interesting due to the format as well as your next matchups.
Yeah, I always have a feeling when it comes to these Swiss stages, you win a round, you're supposed to get a tougher opponent. You lose it, it should get easier. But of course, the stakes get so much higher the lower on that graphic you end up being. And that's when some teams tend to crack. And that's when opponents, which you'd expect to play at a certain level, rise up against you as well. But to avoid all that calamity, for the first minute, it's been rather neutral, must be said. But Nighthawks are up in the heat.
Certainly are. And what is the interesting about it sort of side of things here, the Royal Navy actually spent the last sort of 2-3 months sort of reshaping their entire teams to have themselves in a position, their inter-service record top 4, which wasn't too bad. So they have a few things to upset the apple cart, so to speak, here as Subi will want to have that ball again.
Might get it again. If Bell loses this 50 against Tyler, it does come across. Subi is waiting down low. Gets that first touch towards the corner. Poggy is looking for that infield pass. Horizons is an option, but it's a deep set ball towards that far post. And Trinity, despite having all the right of way to fight through, completely hashes the 50. The floodgates open up and the Krakens course through.
This is going to be a very much an important series. Not just in terms of round 1, but the entirety of Swiss stage. I mean, we just happened to cast our eyes back about 2 weeks ago here, where, the Royal Navy's here very own lineup was just a game away, essentially, from qualifying here as Bale, looking to remove that early goal, mind you, as Tyler dances that one out of the danger.
These are two teams that know the importance of every single round of Swiss. They went to that final round in that first qualifier. And whilst it was a fairy tale ending for the Nighthawks to make that main event, the same cannot be said about the Krakens. This is an attempt to improve upon that recent result, and I like the start.
Well, how about the ending here? Unfortunately, we don't have that babams or ending, but it has been, shall we say, a very much controlled poise. I would imagine Psycho will be enjoying the defensive sort of structure from, of course, the Royal Navy's here, very own Krakens. It's been 1-2 touches here, and it's, we saw from the open qualifiers pick, a lot sort of slower, but mundane at times, where it's a lot more fluid, a lot more dynamic by both sides here.
Oh, but a risk taken by Trinity and Bale. And with the high risk, they'll feel that high reward. It's a great ball forward from Bale, but look at how he holds this run. Trinity takes it off the back wall, and he just makes sure he's still available. You don't see him turn those tyres too early. And with that, it's a deserved equaliser for the Nighthawks.
But we're going to be somewhat dipping into rematch the way that was being described. I was waiting for the offside flag. Help the run, Pegasus.
Can't help myself. I'm in the World Cup mood, even though it's over. We'll add an extra bit of that over here in the BFBS. Bale, though, taken to the skies. Tell you what, that doesn't happen that often.
Well, the day I ever see in the World Cup a player flies in the air, I'll tell you this here, something's gone drastically wrong on the television.
Oh, I don't know. There was a certain red card which came pretty close to it. Trinity, off that back wall, has Subi at that front post, but Horizons manages to react in due time. Tyler takes it up that right wall. One teammate's taken down. His only other option has to be Poggy to take that space. Instead, Subi booms it downfield, and I fear and that might not be the pressure pilot they want. There is defenders there ready to clear it right back out.
And that's a good save. Right at the heart of the net, there was the shots here. Trinity likewise trying to use the same flank that was the original point of entrance as Horizon to Poggy, top right, beckons Unfortunately, doesn't find its way, didn't have enough dip on the shot here. And Trinity was watching, had enough boost, could have saved it if it was on target. And that's going to be the critical bit here within the remaining time.
Oh, Horizons though, right in the top right corner. Brings the favour back towards the Krakens. But this has that extra waiting. 40 seconds left on the clock. A potential winner is found with that strike. But Nighthawks still have the chance to shake any of those endeavours.
And for at least Horizons, it was going to be quickly diced, mind you. Bale, soft touch, but it's loose, mind you. Needs to be at least on the front end of the nose as that one drops right down. And Horizon should have actually just banged that ball top end of the crossbar and just put pressure onto it. And that's the problem with the slow delivery here.
Poggy. 2 touches isn't reached, and with that, Trinity's given space. Already broken past 2. The third one's bumped, but it's still not enough to stop the save incoming. Subi is stopped by Bale first, just having to wait for that infield pass, which just feels like it will never come. An Overcooked's final play leads to a defeat for the RAF. The Navy take the first game.
And if you sat here coming into this one here, historically, it's usually the RAF, from even season 1 here, would have had this sort of wrapped up at 2-0, especially any of their sort of top 4 teams here. Not the case here, but you have to give full Axel credit here. You could probably sit here and say Horizons has, been the star man. I would argue and sit here and say that it was probably Poggy who was the man to look out for.
Well, of course, there was great performances all round from the Krakens, but when you needed that final shot on the offense, Horizons provided exactly that. There were 2 goals for the Krakens, both coming from the same players. Every single attempt at nets coming from Horizons as well, despite both of those goals not coming unassisted, Tyler being the one to provide both of them. But this is the perfect first series you could ask for so far, Danny. Oftentimes when we've done these broadcasts, the early games have been complete washouts, and we've had to wait a little bit later in the day to see these tight affairs. But with the open qualifier finish and only the finest 16 remaining, we've been given a treat here in round 1.
Certainly have, and it just shows you the temperament of the players here. You can be guilty of putting your sort of foot up the gas, especially in the opening game too. Both sides knows that this is essentially a qualification for top 8 here. It is essentially 2 sides that we could be in the conversation for LAN here, but that's a conversation that will be getting into the nail biting, I presume, in a week's time here before the old abacus has to come out here for the point total.
Well, points have already been added to the Nighthawks' tally, of course, making that top 8 previous performance. Krakens still trying to push himself into that spot. Came so close last time, but knowing that there is a spot there that you have to replace, beating a team in his first round that got there last time, is pretty positive signs moving forward.
They aren't too far away in the overall rankings, as you rightly pointed out, Pegasus. Not too much will separate, but if they do one step better here, the Kraken still have that 2-point deficit to get themselves back into touching difference. But again, they'll have the likes of the RAF Mustangs, the British Army's very own Kestrels, and surprisingly as well, the RAF Typhoon, the second best team, and of course the 2 times previous qualifying champions, so low down on the table so soon in the season.
And this series coming at us quick, of course. That's the nature of the format already. A match point position for the Royal Navy. I would say the first minute felt like it was all Nighthawks. You're starting to see a shift in the gameplay, though. All boost whittled down with that one shot. Doesn't tempt Horizons into making a mistake. Instead, laid off to Tyler, off the corner, though. Back towards Horizons. Someone has to chase towards this second ball, but there isn't a Nighthawks car inside. Bale, though, comes through the shadows.
And that's a good bump. This should have been a goal, and it will be.
What's that over the horizon? It's his very own namesake, and it's certainly not Subi anymore. A beautiful bump at a halfway line. And oftentimes that's a play that assists a fellow teammate. He gets to put that one away himself. The sole goal scorer for the Kraken. Though Tyler could change that towards the back post. They immediately Danny double up.
This could not get any better for an opening. Just simply poised and let Tyler slot that home. And now the RAF has got a few problems here because, you know, I mean, the Royal Navy, there was an old legend within the scene. Stimple could have been the man playing onto the pitch right now and probably be saying to the lads right now, just continue it. You've got them where you want them.
And it is still in that defensive half of the Nighthawks. Throws a rare clearance out from Trinity off that crossbar. Down to Subi. Double tap looming. Might need triple. Sends it down to Trinity. But this falls to the wayside. Bell forced to attack on that follow-up opportunity. They need to find a goal. And at this point, Danny, just to disrupt the momentum, you'd want to find it fast.
Well, Horizons, well, he had that one blasted. Tyler will have that one sunk into that swamp. And the Royal Navy is essentially playing battleships against the RAF. There was always going to be one winner.
Krakens. 3 goals up. Still over half the game to go. And oftentimes that feels rather one-sided. The Nighthawks definitely have had the offensive potential. But there has been definitely a rise in caliber compared to what we have seen beforehand from the Krakens. And Horizons definitely, for me, has been the one to lead that charge off that back wall towards Poggy. And that's the player you wanted to give credit to. The floor's all yours.
Don't need. The man does it himself. Just simple, delicate, and gorgeous of a finish there. 4 to the batter. And you know what? We're getting words running around here. The rest of the matchups as well too here, Pegasus. And about the looks of it here, upsets left, right, and centre here for this evening.
Oh my goodness, the RAF taking down the Krakens using the Typhoons roster. The Kestrels also taking down the Krakens beforehand. Oh, sorry, that is previous results between these guys. I'm looking in the completely wrong spot. My apologies. But for the Krakens in this case, this is definitely a bit of a monkey off their back.
Are you sitting there trying to do your sort of fortune-telling bit there?
Sorry, I see the future, and sometimes those premonitions become too much to ignore.
I'll tell you here, when it gets really bad, you know, you end up with a sort of a whiteboard with a black marker and trying to, you know, get red string to connect all the weird lines and connections. Either that there, I've watched too many Murdoch mysteries.
I'd like to see that as well. Like, we've got so many ideas for the BFBS TikTok now, so many costumes that we have to get here. We've got to make sure those all come through. Horizons is still looking for the 5th of the Krakens. I like to see this from the Royal Navy. You've got the opportunity, once you take the lead in a game like this, to try and shut it down, especially when you know that your opponents do have that offensive caliber. That's not the Krakens, though. They're going for 5, they're going for 6, they're going for as many that is possible. And I like a relentless nature from the team. It's not just for getting the insurance, it's keeping them flowing and within the same style as well. Tyler's not going to land that double tap. Horizons won't get that open net. But it hardly matters when the scoreline's looking like this.
I don't mean this as an insult to the Krakens, but they have played quite poorly in the last 2 minutes. They missed about 5 open nets here while they're 4-0 up here. You sort of going, you know, you've got them where you want them. You know, there used to be this old quote when Germany, Brazil, obviously that famous scoreline. And it was at half-time when they sat there, and it was 4-0. And apparently, if I got this correctly, stop scoring against Brazil here. You're going to damage their reputation, and they're a good side with a legacy. We want to respect them. Didn't last very long, that did it.
How does this feel like for you, Danny? Is this a shake to the reputation of the Nighthawk? Because I'm going the converse side. For me, Krakens have just reached another level that I have not seen in quite some time. And I'm very impressed with how they played, especially with how that first game went in that series, where actually they had the lesser shots in the matchup. For me, this is more of a step up from themselves than a series loss from the Nighthawks.
Well, to me, I sort of look at it here. I think the RAF Nighthawks could be slipping down the RAF's very own rankings, potentially with the Mustangs breathing down their neck here for that sort of top four spot, the same way like so the Shadows here. So it's that unknown quantity of the midfield battle for them, where the Royal Navy, in terms of what they have produced of late here, have always been consistent in that sort of top 10 conversation. And tonight here, I think you rightly pointed out, they have blown them out of the water here. And you know what? The key point as well, too, and this was pointed out to us as well, because the Krakens here have been in similar situations last Swiss stage. Buzzards, Typhoons, and the Castrals. All matches have taken games off them previously, but couldn't get the job done here. So at this point, is it the conversation here? Is that, should they be considering taking down those type of teams here?
I think with a performance like that, you certainly do. I mean, with how dominant as well that second game was, like you said, it was 4-0. It definitely could have been more. This is where you do start to get that bit of confidence. You start pushing your weight around a little bit with those teams, which typically you would not be saying the same case in previous qualifiers or even previous seasons at this point now, with this being the second one overall. But like you said, towards those final minutes, maybe not the best Rocket League they played. Perhaps in their head it's already won, but we know that that's not a mentality you can afford to have in Swiss. They played well enough to win 2 series last time. Problem is they lost 3 right afterwards.
Well, certainly so, and I don't know if it's possible we can pull up the Swiss bracket very briefly here, because we do have a few results creeping on in here, Pegasus. So we didn't have time to talk about. I think this is the perfect time, of course, here. And where do you want to start here? Because there's 2 results in particular here that are interesting for their own regards here, especially at the top end of the table.
Yeah, we got Buzzards 2-0 down the Jackdaws. We got the SEA Dragons also landing a sweep on the Sparrowhawks. And the final result that I'm seeing is the Kestrels managing to sweep the Merlins as well. Heading into those series, myself, Danny, I was definitely picking a sweep in those specific ways as well. I'm interested at the nature at which they have happened, because so far with the Kestrels especially, I've seen that they get themselves in a few scraps in every single series they play, regardless of a win or loss.
Well, they certainly have. I mean, the fact of it is they've been consistently enough in those sort of situations where you expect them actually to be the scrappy underdog to essentially get yourselves into favorable wins. But what has to be pointed out here is that the Merlins themselves here, I mean, Shaq here's been the consistent side, or a consistent player within BFBS and as well the inter-service and all the other branches as well in the competition. But as 2 team, it's fairly new in the grand scheme of things, but results-wise, as we've just been told, 3-1, 3-2 respectively, so they were close to getting at least a game off them here.
Yeah, it does seem like the case, and it seems like it was a closer second game as well for the Merlins to potentially creep themselves back into that series. But again, that's just the brutality of the format. You don't get the thrill of a warm-up game. You have to step up immediately, and with that as well, rumor has it that the Merlins brought on Abyss during the group qualifier as well. So they've had a bit of a shake-up before that series had begun. And unfortunately, so far, we haven't quite seen that come into play.
Well, we had last season, as you rightly remember, the massive shake-up, especially with the resurgence in Omnia, was a qualifier.
Oh, yeah.
Qualifier 5 really, but it was qualifier 6, the main final itself here, and it was that sort of question of what a few players were going to do, and the likes of Lion and Ritzy, who is still over in SE Dragons this campaign. But I mean, you had the likes of players at the time, Hammer Saints, coming in, dangerous threat to the competition, Krim as well. Just to throw a couple of old names here. So I'll ask you this question before we head to the break here. Who's going to be the biggest threat of a player here this season? Because it's been one of those campaigns.
It's a tough call. Of course, there are certain names that I'm looking at. I mean, Bluey is just such a huge name in of itself. No matter what, that's always going to be in consideration. I know that they, of course, ended up being champions last time. And it's another series I wish I would have had the chance to watch, because Onza didn't even play for the Buzzards today. Fezzi is playing in that spot, and I respect Fezzi a lot, but for me, there is a bit of disparity there. So the fact that in that first series, they were still able to pick up the 2-0, and with what I saw from Bluey in that last qualifier as well during the Swiss stage, I feel like it's a bit of the cheap pick, but it's the one I'm going to go for.
Well, that's fair. I mean, there is one pick that you could have went for. The Typhoons over the RAF does not have the 2 times inter-service champion in the 3v3 and the 1v1. They have brought back Stelios on a temporary substitution, but they have just won their match 2-0 against the RAF derby that has happened against the Harriers. So plenty of names, plenty of threats here, and still plenty of matches. But from at least Pig and I and the rest of the crew here, we're going to take a short break here and have round number 2 ready in a few moments' time.
60.
I can see the shadows look like you. I gotta forget, find something new. There's no going back for you and I. You and I. Don't know what you want, I need to know. Don't pick up the phone when I try to call. Tell me what is wrong, oh, what is right. What is right. 'Cause now it's too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah. Now it's too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah,
You're convincing and you know it. Play the game and never show your cards. It's conflicting in the moment, but when you got it, always breaks my heart. I'm overworking. You're missing the point of my intentions. My work is starting. Addicted to you, anything that we do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the BFBS stream. It is still myself, Sir Picasso. The second round of the day, we have Psycho. We've got our upper bracket and our lower bracket all decided. Teams off to a flying start, sit in a position in that 1-0. Although that's not going to be where our focuses lie for the next 20 minutes or so.
Yep, we've moved down towards the 0-1 matchup, Pegasus, and there's two extremely familiar teams who you will know as having legacy players across BFBS Pro League history. We are going to have a look at the UVG Screamers, which we really haven't seen so far this season, and I'm so excited to see how they get stuck in today.
If there was ever a time that would be inappropriate to throw out a prediction, it would be between these two teams. So we haven't given Danny the joy of having that series whatsoever. Both of these teams very closely seeded when it comes to just looking at general trackers and their MMRs, but also in their performances as well. In that very first qualifier, they both made it to this Swiss stage, but both of which got eliminated in that round 4. So for them, it's trying to push as far as they possibly can and break the ultimate barrier if they want to make that top 8 pull. For UVG, it's very rare representation over here in the Swiss stage bracket. So their sole standards will have to rise up against, well, a service which has a whole lot of history.
Absolutely. And the Harriers have some familiar faces for myself, Pig, I must say, in Prof, as he does take to the field, a player that I've had the pleasure of actually competing with in some of the RAF community 6-mans, as Propane is going to try and test the backboard nice and early on.
And went for a second as well. I do see a player already not moving, and that is Connor for the likes of Harriers, so hopefully he can get himself up and away as soon as possible. Over away Harriers. Almost set it off himself. Prof, look for that right-hand side. Spen is awaiting there. Well, there it is. The disconnect for Connor there. It's not what you want to see in the second round of a Swiss. Oh. And we've got to see a little bit of a taste of what the Harriers were capable of last night, of course, with Prof, as per usual, managing to step up with the rest of the roster. That's an excellent first showing. Would it be the first time, actually, in this very specific qualifier, we would have seen a 2v3 team take the lead?
Real pain for them to find their footing again, as that is Charlie Sierra, as he's otherwise known, out of action early on in this game number 1. And he is a player who can add a lot to the table, I believe, Pegasus. He is incredibly smart with his approach. He loves to try and focus on the positioning first, and everything else falls into place.
And the problem, especially with the way that this can work, is a lot of time is not of the essence for these two rosters. That being said, Connor has managed to add themselves back to the pitch. So for a 2v3 period, Psycho, this is about as well as it could have gone. Not a single concession, and in fact, managing to add one for themselves. So if Connor can step up, like you mentioned, and add that value to the team, they should be in good strides.
Absolutely so, as it's going to be Propane stepping up next with some support from the Army veteran herself, codenamed Jess, who featured throughout the whole duration of last season's Pro League. It was a joy to have them back on the field, as Prof is going to look for a pass back in field, blocked away by Tuto.
Oh, Spenzo, it's there for the block. Propane's in the centre. Prof just wants to take this ball down. Connor has to chase it on that second press. It was low boost for Screamers. They couldn't readjust. Connor looked like they were going high initially. But that brief change in pace almost cost the Screamers defense. Instead, it's straight towards the other side. And a mistake will completely open the door for UVG.
Some would call it a mistake, but I'd call that a good read on the play from Tuto. Just position himself nice and early up on that wall. He knew the player was going high, and the rest of it was history.
And Harriers wants history to repeat itself. Already found a lead in this game. UVG Screamers have brought that right back, though it's Tuto with a 50. You spoke about his great read, showing off what more they have in their locker as well. Jess can't break this one on the inside. Tuto is going towards that near post, but you saw all three blue cars waiting for any potential shooting opportunities that will land. But then, as soon as they get possession, it really feels like they hold onto the gas and quickly try to move the ball forward.
I'm beginning to get a little bit concerned with how loose UVG are on the ball, though. It's heavy, heavy touches, and I think that works in favour of arguably a slightly more mechanically gifted RAF Harriers side, but it's the positioning that really impresses me at the moment for UVG, as there's a player in field. Jess does have support in Tuto, following up right behind.
And that was great spacing shown as well, Jess. Looked like they would be out the play, and that could be a chance for Tuto to step forward. Instead, it was communicated well. Both players still sat behind the play, and that has really disallowed any quick counters from the side of Harriers. Instead, they are well equipped in defense, but Prof with a full tank of boost has a free backboard. The double tap potential was there, but Jess throws that one straight out the window.
Spen can't find that ball on target, and the ball simmers in the corner. And Connor very happy to take his time, especially now that he's got a firm foothold of the game. Prof with a lovely demo. That's going to open it wide up for Charlie Sierra, or Connor as he's otherwise known, for a second.
Yeah, Tuto was getting demoed, but at the very same time, Connor was making bumps on the infield as well. There was no real recovery opportunity for the Screamers. They created the issue for their opponents and capitalized right afterwards. That's for showings of a really well-oiled machine, and the Harriers have been exactly that so far.
Another shooting chance for Tuto now, and it's just touched to the side. Tuto still on the ball. He's going to squeeze it against the post, and it's really close to him finding an equaliser. Jess now needs to step up to the plate fast, but Propane with a cut in front there.
Oh, Connor doesn't make the read. Prof has to take up that position. Spen just waited to boom this one forward. Connor with a chance to show off those mechanics, goes up for the redirect, finds it off the crossbar. There were defenders available, but it really felt like for a second the third would be found. Screamers still have hopes for some late dramas in the dying seconds, though Propane is beaten by Prof towards a corner. Jess has to commit themselves to this ball, but Tuto's mistouch will surely lead to disaster. The first game in the favour of the Harriers, but at times it felt like UVG had the comeback potential.
And even down to the very last second with that 0-second pop towards the middle by Tuto. The floater that came in field, Pegasus, was really sort of thought-provoking, and it did sort of get the Harriers thinking, whoa, we're in trouble here. But fortunately for them, they did hold out, Pegasus. And honestly, for me, these are the most entertaining games to sort of read on with a coach's eye almost, because there's two very different approaches coming into this series.
I was about to mention the exact same. You mentioned Screamers being a bit more of a positional roster, and Harriers a lot more mechanical as well. You see they play with that level of confidence when they're transitioning from defense to offense. They have a player constantly ready to cherry pick. They were almost rewarded at the dead of that last game as well with that secured goal right at the very end. Instead, defense managed to make the block. The crossbar certainly was on the side of the Screamers as well. But if they keep booming that ball forward and giving them the space, the time, the opportunity to bring up what essentially feels like set-piece playground plays, they're going to be in for a very quick road to the 0-2.
Definitely so. And it's going to be an early contest from Prof. Prof Too Easy, as I know him, has decided that things have gotten harder now. He's scrapped that portion of the name, but he's made it look quite comfortable for himself so far.
He really has. Prof looks a bit uncomfortable on that first chance. Tuto, it's another one of those familiar heavy hits, and that one didn't necessarily head towards a teammate either. Just feel like there has to be a little bit more care taken on these touches, a bit more direction in terms of where they want to send the ball. They had some criticisms for teams last night that didn't make it today, but they didn't hit the ball hard enough. This is where you've got to add that extra degree of security if you want to make it any further.
And I was seeing something really sneaky from UVG, and that was Propane reaching all the way downfield, trying to scoop up not just one bump, but perhaps 3 or 4. He was really hunting for those disruptive plays, and if he did make it stick, could have opened a counter-attack just about 20 seconds ago.
Propane is on the back foot here, sees that 100 boost, makes sure to pick it up with the ball. Heading closer towards that net, does spell some danger. Profits are going to reach that back pass. Ben is all the way up the wall, and that gives Tuto space to charge forward. But you saw 2 players there, very defensively minded on UVG, took too much time to turn, and that gave Harriers that one touch forward, which you've seen them completely regroup.
Brilliant clearance now from Propane, and it is on target. Spen has found the touch to the side, and it's going to be Tuto called into play. But it's a big miss, and Jess has panicked. Oh, not quite on target from Spen.
I like that from Spen. Just barreling themselves forward caused that bit of panic with the single jump. Kept them guessing, didn't use that flip too early. Now they're going to be concerned about that for the rest of the game. Only 2 minutes gone of a second. We do still sit goalless. There are chances for either side. Tuto might have found the one to break, but instead it's Prof with so much composure, not only to get the 2 touches out of defense, but a counter is ignited as well into corner. Doesn't find the target. Spen has to finish the job, but it's wide of the post.
And I like the fact that Propane just got himself up nice and quickly. Didn't care about hitting the ball. It's just try and scare the attacker and make them rush the shots. And the shot definitely was. It was placed poorly in what should have been a first goal for the Harriers.
And of course, potential for sweeping results in this series. We've already had a few decided elsewhere, though. Hold on, Tuto on that backboard. Propane's available. It was the most offensive I'd seen from UVG. They played with the finer 4, they get burns. But somehow, play resumes. The scoreline's unchanged.
Look, it's just a flesh wound. That's all it is. UVG are still walking forwards with pride. It's 0-0, and Propane's going to be shy into that challenge. Fails to push the ball to the corner first time, but gets it there eventually as that shot looks dangerous, but a lovely pre-jump to get that ball away. But the pressure is just relentless, Ping.
Connor could fake this one for Prof. They wanted to instead resort for the touch. They sat deep. And that allows them, with their high boost, to just build up the play themselves. We said this is what you can't do with the Harriers. Just should have had a touch. But Spen has been bailed out, is allowed the second. Connor has to get this ball on the inside. A backflip, though. Is it going to help for any 50-50 opportunities? It goes corner to corner, and Prof shows us that Propane is flammable.
I think Harriers could have had about 3 or 4 goals at this point. They are just teasing that first one now. Surely this one's going to be pushed in by Connor. Codename Jess can't quite get the touch. And you can see just as that first touch comes through off the pass, it's just so difficult to deal with.
It is perfection from Prof to get that ball right into the box, but still, I was holding my breath seeing Prof go up for that aerial. We've seen those chances fall wayward for them. That kickoff almost looked like a chance to double up as well. Spen with the intercept could immediately plant the pressure in this final minute. We've seen differences in strategy once we reach this point. Do you clamp it down? Do you try and get the second? Or do you sit back and defend? Something tells me the Harriers are going to keep moving forward. That triple commit is going to be my case study as well.
Lovely 50-50. That was going to be so tricky for Prof. But he's found freedom on the left-hand flank. Propane is there, but all alone. And needs to keep piling on the pressure himself. Codename Jess, waiting for that shot to come through now. It's backboard bound and Spen on target. Blocked away by Tuto.
Oh, and that was almost the perfect pass if it was in any different time. It was already a defensive-minded position for the remaining Harriers players. Profo positioned well. Now the bump is there. It opens up the front post. The back post pass, though, actually ends up way too wide. But regardless, every single second off the clock feels like an extra goal. And the sweep is secured for the Harriers. They go towards the neutral bracket. UVG's sole representation, unfortunately, will be down in the 0-2s, but it feels like a harsh result, Psycho. That one felt like it was going to go towards the distance, but there was just an extra bit of magic in the Harriers' play.
Absolutely, and I'm gutted we didn't get to see a game 3 there. I was seriously enjoying that series, and both of them put up a tremendous fight. UVG, they solidified in that game 2. They tried their absolute hardest to withstand what was an almighty onslaught of attacks from the RAF Harriers, and they did so tremendously well. I think at the end of the day, though, Pegasus, if you're not finding those chances yourself, you can't win games, and defensive battles are just so tricky to win.
Oftentimes, it felt like it was all the very minute decisions that just were not getting considered by the Screamers, especially in offense. It felt like there was a lot of excitement and urgency to be there as the series continued, whereas in the first game, I felt like they played a little bit passive for my liking, especially early in the second. But if there was just that extra thought taken to where am I hitting this ball? Is that backboard free? Am I going to boom towards it? Or can I just hold it close for the 50-50? Those small decisions could have made the entire difference. Maybe it could have squeezed out a goal or two extra, but it was one of those series where that goal or two would have been the game.
Yeah, definitely. And I encourage UVG, if you are tuning into the broadcast, absolutely go and watch that back, because it was a great fight and you had your moments. And I think Pegasus is right in some of the ways that perhaps that could have gone a different direction. But some results have come through so far in the series. As much as that was a quick one, a 2-0, there are plenty of them by the looks of things. RAF Nighthawks managed to take a sweep against the Sparrowhawks 2-1 and 4-1. Going into that game, you'd probably expect a result like that, but things start to look a little bit more topsy-turvy when you look at the game underneath, Pegasus.
Yeah, this has been a bit of a shock all round. We've got, of course, the Nighthawks sweeping the Sparrowhawks. The Merlins taking on the Lozzie Phantoms as well is a matchup that I'm looking at, especially with how hard they fought yesterday and how well they played in the previous tournament. Mustangs swept to Jackdaws. Falcons managing to sweep the Typhoons. This was the result that stood out to me. I got a message from Danny Boy, who's been helping collate the results for us whilst we've been at the desk. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I let some time settle to really believe that one. But of course, they have a slew of interesting circumstances over on that RAF roster.
Yeah, they definitely do, and it's proving of the passion that the Typhoons roster is putting into their play and just how badly they want it. But Falcons, nonetheless, that is the second best team from the British Army esports on paper, arguably beating out the RAF first team, and that's continuing a trend that we saw over in community qualifier number 1, Pig. And you are right, the circumstances have been tough for the Typhoons. I do believe 2 players playing in the same room on shared mobile data. It doesn't really get much more difficult than that. But nonetheless, Typhoons, they put up a fight. It wasn't an absolute walk in the park, and that's positive to see if you're an RAF fan moving on to the remainder of this Swiss.
Well, you could call it a bit of a buff considering the circumstances that it is Stelios, the player that is subbing in place of Envy. I think if there is a team that definitely will need to regroup between series, it is going to be that one. You said it was close. It was 2-1, the loss in that first game, and a 4-0 in the second. And we've seen that quite a fair few times, actually, towards the best of three periods of the tournaments. That first game always just seems to sell you the dreams of a close game. And the second one, you just feel the team with the more confidence manages more times than not to actually pull off that sweep.
Yeah, and I think just looking at some of those other results coming in, BAE's Merlins 2-0ing the Lozzie Phantoms. I think that one was one that I was actually a bit more uncertain on. We managed to see the Lozzie
Yeah.
Phantoms in action yesterday, and we saw, for me at least, it was Karis, who was an incredibly, incredibly strong player, doing so much heavy lifting in terms of the solo play potential, but also the team was structured really, really well to try and keep those goals away. They were beaten out, though, in Swiss. So moving forwards to round 3, Pegasus, we're getting towards that territory where the nerves are going to be at an all-time high. We have our elimination games and our first qualification matches too.
Yeah, some teams as well just looking to try and change the course of their entire day in that neutral bracket too. This is where the Swiss stage truly begins. There is no more real seeding shenanigans you can consider like you can do with the first round and the second. It should be pretty close games to spare all round. We've seen a lot of sweeps so far on the docket. Something tells me that changes from now on.
Well, I think it's just going to have to be a matter of time before we get there, Pegasus. We are going to take a short break, and the new fixtures will be released very soon. So we'll see you after that break.
Out here, every millisecond counts. And in here, every millisecond counts too. Never let delays ruin the action. Upgrade your Wi-Fi to Wi-Finity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off your first 3 months.
fantastic broadcast that we've got here. And you know what? It's almost like a picnic bag here, because you know what? Here, the old man decided to bring out the Willer sweets here. But Psycho decided, you know what? We'll bring in, a few Haribos here. Is it going to be a heart to fried egg, or is it going to be a ring of a promise of a good game here?
Well, this is a completely unnecessary tangent, Danny, but in fact, I do have a giant cardboard box full of gold bears in my boot as we stand. Maybe perhaps the winner of this next series can take some off of my hands.
I'm trying to work out have I ever had them before. Never mind, should the players get them?
Yeah, well, moving up to the third round then, Danny. Myself and Pig alluded to it. There is elimination games going on as we speak in round number 3, and they do look to be some really, really tasty, tight games. Lozzie Phantoms versus British Army Esports Sparrowhawks, UVG Screamers versus Jackdaws. Those two, I think, are both going to be extremely close matchups. And in the upper end of things, British Army Esports Falcons versus the British Army Esports Buzzards, perched at the very top, Danny.
It certainly is here, and I want to touch on that fact of the two elimination games for a quick second here, Psycho, in terms of the fact of it is based on the point tallies. I think it's actually the UVG Streamers as currently sitting with 3 points, give or take here. So they're roughly, what would that be, 6 points away from, land qualification here. They weren't actually too far last time around here, because they were nip and tuck against the RAF Shadows last season. So it is still a possibility here for them to provide an upset here. And it did start with a few, shall we say, lower bracket runs last season to get into that situation. So history would favor the likes of those sides there. Absolutely
so. And there is a little bit of a sort of a difference coming into the series that we're going to be watching up next, the Falcons versus the Buzzers, and that is the disappearance of what was, and arguably still is in some people's minds, the star player from the Buzzards in Onza. He is missing today, and it's Captain Fezzy stepping up to the plate to do some damage for the Buzzards today.
Well, the fact is we're sitting here, talking about quite literally the situations and who's having the more awkward one. I mean, we might as well touch briefly on that round 2 results of the RAF Typhoons. No more ago, they were playing the Falcons, funny enough, to get into the situation. Close opening game, then suddenly ran away from it, and you have to look at it here and go, not playing with the likes of Envy is certainly making a massive difference here in terms of just qualifying for the top 8 here.
Well, they've made very light work of managing to get into this 2-0 portion, so I think it's extremely optimistic for the Buzzers at the moment. And Fezzy's play is not to be scoffed at, I must be honest. Mechanically, he's seriously impressive, especially when it comes to the solo play potential. I think that's where he can really thrive on the pitch, but he's also a leader as well, and you can see the sort of energy he brings to the table, because he does sort of command just a need to win, an urge to win. And I think in a very similar way to how you might look at people like Stelios behind the scenes coming into sub for those big games and having an impact of his own, Fezzy certainly knows how to do the same.
All right, I'm going to throw you sort of this unusual side of the question. We always talk about the mechanical players. We always talk about the big moments of it. Who's going to be the foundational player? Who's the one actually going to stand out here? Because you can sit there and talk about, being on their own here, but it's always that sort of spine of a team that makes or breaks people's runs here.
Yeah, for Buzzards, it's Bluey. That's the obvious answer for me. And I think just looking at his play and the way he was approaching the pitch the last time we had the pleasure of watching him in the grand finals, going back to main event number 1, incredibly selfless with the way he was actually moving about, positioning himself in the right sort of places to cover his teammates, but at the same time being able to deliver those balls across, being able to get those demos when needed to open up the play, is very sort of forward thinking. It wasn't just me all the time, which is often the case when you look at a top player coming into the play. But Bluey, he was a professional for a reason, Danny, so he is the solidity.
Well, you mentioned the word professional, Owen. I might as well ask you, what is the difference here between the amateur level and the professional level?
Well, the difference is doing everything slightly better than the rest. That is quite frankly the answer. And I know that's the answer everyone hates because it's like those clickbaity sort of news adverts. One thing you can do to change your game to become a professional player, and it's just not that simple. It is hundreds and hundreds, thousands of hours committed to improving, and typically that is amongst people with a similar passion as your own. And I think when we look at this sort of a community, the Armed Forces community, we can see the hunger to develop. We can see almost the race to become the next big team on the horizon. And we've seen some upsets, even today, Danny, from players that we thought were going to have a difficult time. The likes of the Royal Navy Krakens coming in as well. What it takes is opportunity and the right mindset for me.
Well, it certainly is, and the opportunity is not too far away here because I presume both sides would like to get this match underway, and rightly so here. So at this point here, Psycho, is it going to be the classic story of Bluey once again doing it, or will we have that upset?
Well, fingers crossed it's going to go to a Game 3 because we've been robbed far too many times of that today, and quite frankly, I'm fed up of it. We want a close one. We want this to be spirited. And I'm sure Falcons are going to be smelling blood in the water.
I love how just before we went live here, it's nearly 10 years of RL commentary, and you're sitting here saying you're fed up with it, Owen.
I say it tongue in cheek. I love this, Danny. I love it. If it's a two-goal game, well, 2 goals would be a bit boring. If it was a two-game game.
A two-game game. I feel like the cord needs to be taken out of you, the resets here.
I'm going back to a coach. This is dreadful. I'm twisting my tongue. I'm gaming the games.
So what bus are you driving?
Next. What did you say?
What bus are you going to then? You say you're becoming a coach next.
What bus? Oh, that's a good question, but I'm not going to expose the ones close to my home location, as Wuck is going to tip this one over from the final defender. It's a cheeky flick to get a second on the board for the Buzzards.
Well, at this sort of point, it's a double-decker. Quite nicely, a 2-0 lead, stack opponent, and we've been talking about closeness and everything else about it here. I mean, they are here, the defending champions. Let's not forget too much here about the Buzzards themselves. And, against, what essentially was last week's final here, Rome. The SEA Dragons let that series slip out of their fingertips.
Arguably so, but I also think the Buzzards did such a good job of just staying composed. And I think for a team like the SE Dragons, we see that they have cracks and they do have the ability to just drop games that they quite simply shouldn't. And for Buzzards, I don't know, they just give me that feeling of security when I watch them play.
Well, shot just going slightly too wide there, but security-wise off what last season, and feel free to disagree with me here, but there's one side here. Resurgence used to be quite good at that. Boost over ball arguably was the #1 side on that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely, and I think even within those rosters, there was still calamity. There was still problems to be exposed. And boost over ball in the last season, let's not forget they were coming into that as 4th seed, and I think on paper they were far from the favourites. And going into this season, I almost think as if things are even closer. Like it really is difficult to call.
And do you know what? I'll even go further on to that there, and I think I might be disowned here by the RAF bunch. I feel like so far here, the 2 qualifiers, of course, this still yet to be played out here, has been a disappointing campaign from them. Typhoons have dropped off from the 2 times qualifying champions. The new RAF Storm Shadows lineup had done well, reached the semi-final, but it's not been the same story from last season. It's been truly the British Army with the biggest uprise. Definitely
so, and Royal Navy, I think, are knocking on the door to having a seriously competitive team, as that is a gorgeous little redirect from Fezzi. And we were speaking briefly about the mechanical ability and also the selflessness of Bluey. There's both in one basket.
Joe, he's one of those players that, and please don't be insulted, Bluey, if you are listening back to this, but he was one of those players that you loved to hate. Especially if you supported another team.
Hold on, Danny. Where was that thought going?
Well, the point was, is that, back in the day, when you were the likes of the flip side supporter, when Blue was on the likes of PSG here, and you saw this at the time, this new mechanical player coming through, and what he was able to produce, you just had pure hatred of watching him play. So going, why isn't he on my team?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. And as I was sort of growing up through the competitive ecosystem, it was always Bluey who you'd look up to and think, man, I just wish I could play like that. And well, he's still got it, that's for sure. But the Falcons currently seriously struggling. And this is a Buzzards team that is far from their sort of peak, if you like, with Fezzi on the field. But honestly, it's difficult to tell, isn't it?
Certainly is, and that's sort of that interchangeable factor of it, and unfortunately the 6-1 runs on in here. But sometimes you do get a game that you do get blown out of the water. I mean, what was it, 4 seasons ago, RLCS here, the old-fashioned Bricks was hammered 7-0 by Vitality at the time. Or sorry, we lost 1-0, then decided to hammer 7-0. So it's been an odd situation here in terms of how things are, but what the other factor was as well too. Briefly speaking to the players here of the British Army side, they wanted to play against each other. Is it a case of over familiarization here?
I think it's one of those where it's going to be frustration more than anything, isn't it? Let's just be frank. I think if anyone puts themselves in Falcon shoes and they think, oh, we've got a real chance at this one, it's a weakened Buzzards roster, and then they step up and deliver this sort of a performance, it is, quite frankly, terrifying. And they're going to have to really think about how they can restructure their play, just foundationally, to patch some of these holes.
And that's going to be the awkwardness of it here, and both of us has that sort of coach's brain every so often ticking on by of how to do it, whether it's a case of a 2-man sort of essentially sit back here and break through a sweeping demo, the likes of the G-Wood that we've seen plenty of times, or the RAF Storm Shadows, who is quite capable of breaking teams quite openly. But what has been consistent since the 6-0 scoreline, it feels silly saying it like that, but they haven't conceded, which has been arguably the best bit about the gameplay. They have somewhat shored up the issues.
They've completely thwarted the bleeding, at least for the time being, and it's really positive signs, but now they need to give themselves a little bit of a boost, something to get them going a bit back into the play, back at full pace, fully concentrated and good to go ahead of Game 2, Danny. Certainly,
and we'll be hoping to see where it does take us in terms of game number 2 here, but I do like a good fashion Rule 1.
Well, as much as Rule 1s are very nice, I do think that these teams are in a little bit of a hurry. One of them being the Buzzards. They've won 6-0, and quite frankly, I think they just want to keep on pushing forwards. Savage Silverback, I can see you in the chat. I hope you're keeping well. UVG put up a very good fight. A very, very good fight. It was unfortunately a 2-0 loss to themselves, but I highly encourage you to go back in the VOD because it was a tasty game against the RAF Harriers.
Well, I can't sit there and disagree with that sort of factor of it. Unfortunately for UVG sitting in the elimination match to keep on surviving in terms of the competition, but as much as the eyes are going around here, we will have, of course, the updates on the other matches as soon as they do appear. But at least in terms of the British Army's essentially derby, goalless after 20 seconds.
Oh, I think it's such a harsh thing to be celebrating a good start to a game less than a minute in. But honestly, the Falcons, you are right, they do look a little bit more comfortable now as Pod is going to wait for that ball to come back towards the corner. He's got a lovely beat past Wuck. and they're going to think about their next steps forward.
I still would like the name the Harry got to that because it's
How he
because
got to the name?
yeah, because it looks like the end of the Scrabble rack when you're trying to put a few vowels down randomly.
I feel like we deserve to be giving away some channel points to anyone who can work that one out as we enter the countdown segment.
Ooh. Yeah, well, here's a question: who do you, from any of the teams and players, who would you have as the best for countdown?
So, I don't know if you know, but Vatira is actually a semi-professional French Scrabble player. So I'm going to go with the pro. I'm going to go for Bluey.
Sorry, you think Bluey's going to be good at the words and letters, as the Australians would refer to as the good old-fashioned countdown?
Oh, they're extremely competitive, aren't they not?
They may be competitive, but they may not be good at one or the other.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I'll concede this one, Danny. Maybe it wasn't the smartest of picks, but Falcons, they are going to launch a little bit of an attack towards this midfield. Okra contesting very early on, and there is support from Pod. And I think for me, Danny, the one thing I'm looking out for is where is that follow-up? All of the time for Falcons, it just seems to be a little absent, a little slower than the pace of their opposition.
That's always going to be the consistent factor of a pace in terms of, when you have that sort of type of player like Sablinock in terms of what they're capable of doing. So it's how do you approach it? Do you drop that little bit deeper and play expansive sort of Rocket League as much as trying to shift the ball across here? And to some extent, that's what they've been doing. But the key factor, it's been possession. Just as I say that, they lose it, of course.
That's a brilliant shot, and I'm sure it's absolutely textbook for Wuck and nothing challenging, but he squeezed it past that last defender. There was no boost as well, just trying to dive into the play and claw out that defence.
Interesting to see here what potentially the Falcons end up doing here, because as much as only losing 2-0 is an improvement, it's not ideal in any shape or way in Bluey. You just have to enjoy a good dribble.
I mean, it didn't go in, Danny, and honestly, I'm surprised you're not angry with him, because typically, with your coach mindset, you're always like, oh, just put it in. And he's answered the calls. It's 3 for Bluey.
Yeah, but you do know I do love a good old-fashioned bit of dark arts, the mental side of the game as well. You just want to just sit there and toy with your food sometimes, and if it works out, happy days. And if you get the player flying too while you're 2-0 up, it's essentially a white flag of surrender.
And it's back to the drawing boards then for Falcons, who I'm sure are already thinking and preparing for what could be the 2-1 matchup to come, as Okra is going to try and play patiently here and let that attack come forwards, play on the counter-attack, but Fezzi so quick to dart across and just keep them penned into that orange half.
Broken too far or very regularly at that frequency of how this ball has been moved down here by Bluey and Co. has been incredible consistently through the 2 games so far here, and just as results have slowly fed their way right through here, the Nighthawks have gone 2 to the better against the Harriers, but we do finally see a goal here by the Falcons, but it may be a case of too little too late.
They've got it in decent time. 121 is not a complete write-off, and I do think it's a little bit of a confidence boost as well, so all eyes on the kickoff.
Do love how you're sitting there and looking at the clock and saying about 30 seconds a goal, essentially. Fair enough, but you have to play with a bit of pace and a bit of smartness to it. No demo. Based on the second or third man here. And the Buzzards got a free clear, Liam, to bang that down. And just unfortunately like that, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, wiped off the clock just as easy as that.
Lovely hoof downfield from Okra, but it is only going to go as far as Fezzi. And the captain and the British Army lead for Rocket League at large. Such an impact he's had. And we've seen just how ridiculously quickly the rosters have developed over the course of the last year, and he's putting both of them on display here in the 2-0 game. And I think this time last year that wouldn't have even been a concept in our minds, Danny.
I'll even do what you won better in the last sort of 2 months alone. Never mind last season, because I had to do a wee bit of reshuffling around here just to get, you know, the best of all of the sort of the top players in the British Army to even be in this situation. There's no point of sitting there saying how well they've done in the year's development. Yes, you can see how well they have played, but it's that gelling, that bit of chemistry that was missing 2-3 months ago. We have seen it. It's been well, but it's that question is, can the Falcons do that one step better and take a game off their number one side now?
Well, moving forwards, I think anything is possible for the Falcons. It definitely wasn't a passage of play to remember, really, for them. I think they're going to look back at those games and just want to move on and get on with the next ones. It's one of those, Danny. I almost feel as if they were playing with panic, with fear, with a bit of anxiety of the strength of the opposition they were facing, because the Falcons, typically, when they step up to the field, they are so controlling and they love to sort of just play with their food a little bit. That time around, we were seeing the loose touches come in. We were seeing really wide rotations and just a lack of support, really, between the players on the ball. So the follow-ups weren't quite there either. It unravelled for the Falcons there, but moving into the 2-1 game, Danny, I think they're going to be a lot more optimistic.
Well, certainly so. They have time to settle it down and move into that sort of prime position, but we might as well look towards the rest of the field here, because there has been a few key results here and arguably more surprises in just the upper side of in terms of the qualification rounds here.
Yeah, SEA Dragons have gone 2-0 up against the Storm Shadows. And if we reflect back to the Swiss stage number 1 just a week ago, it was actually the Storm Shadows that won that match. So SEA Dragons have bitten back. Royal Navy Krakens 2 up against the RAF Mustangs as well. And the Mustangs definitely solidified as a top 8 roster, I would say, at the moment, Danny, with quite a lot of confidence. And the Krakens have walked away with that one smiling.
Well, if you don't mind here, I've actually done a wee bit of quick mathematics here in terms of how the seeding is. You're guaranteed, and rightly pointed out, it is a top 8 side. Now it's actually drive sort of the point home, the Typhoons and Kestrels alongside the Mustangs in that battle for the top 8 spot itself. It's no longer a 2-3 horse race here. And if the Tridents do go on to win their match as well, they join the battle, and the Royal Navy has massively shaken that mid-table battle up quite nicely here.
Oh, and the thing that scares me, Danny, is just the performance from the Krakens last time around. And I know we said it in the series they had early on, but they can take a game off of any team. They really can. They proved it in the last series versus the SEA Dragons, who they succumbed to, but still managed to take a game off of them. They've done it to the Buzzards. They've done it to the Typhoons. They've done it to the best of the best that every single sort of Armed Forces community group has to offer now. And the last thing they're missing is that final result that pushes themselves across the line. And I do believe maybe this is the week, Danny.
Well, quite possibly. And you mentioned as well the RAF Typhoons. Their result has just came in 2-0. So they have actually just tried to stretch the seeding and the totals of their points into their favor as well. So there's a lot going around here, but we might as well cast our eye briefly to a few names that we'll not see for the rest of the evening here.
I'm Dan Penter.
My name is Mark Langton.
I'm Peter.
My name is Staff Sergeant Richie Reese. My gamer tag is Chief Lid.
Gamer tag is Pete P Gaming.
My gamer tag I play under is SG_Reaper.
My gamer tag is Max Chat. I think the thing I'm looking forward to most as part of the UVG is actually meeting new people. There's a lot of veterans out there who haven't been connected to gaming.
Meeting fellow veterans and playing with fellow veterans. That's what I'm looking forward to do.
So just staying part of a community. So when I was in the RAF, I was part of the RAF esports. So we did a few meetups during that. I'm looking forward to keeping that going with the veterans and expanding it, talking to the other services, which I didn't really do too much of.
We've started with a core of about 60 people that some of us knew, and as it grows every week, new people turn up, and I love meeting new people and getting to know them and gaming with them.
The thing with veterans is we understand each other.
I'm looking forward to being part of the UVG because for me, as a still serving in the British Army at the moment, is that setting that stepping stone for individuals who do eventually leave the services, and looking forward to what UVG can offer them as a gamer, if they are a gamer, or even if they're not a gamer. It's just the community that is offered to them from UVG, where, you know, as a serving soldier who, you know, taking that transition into civilian street is quite hard. So for them, having that community where you got ex-servicemen, ex-service women, for them, they can then look at those communities, and it'll be hopefully make that transition easier for them.
I think the biggest thing that UVG will do for the veterans gaming community is to connect veterans through gaming.
Speaking with other veterans, that's the main thing veterans need to speak. We have a very thing that I am the big man and I can handle it, but we speak to each other. That's going to help our mental health.
See, I think UVG can offer a lot for veteran gamers.
But it's going to bring a lot of people who haven't really got that online social aspect. Through a lot of mental health stuff I've been through and done, and I think that's going to be a massive thing for a lot of people who don't have no one to talk to.
It's not just all about bringing gamers together. It's the events that can go on. They can bring a lot of the veteran community together, which gives them opportunity not just to sit in their homes. They can come out, meet each other, you know, put a face to a name.
Finding this group of people who can understand what they've gone through, understand how they talk, is going to be a massive thing.
For anyone wanting to get involved in UVG, you can find us on Discord, UK Veterans GG, and if you look on any other social media, we're there on UK Veterans GG, be that TikTok or Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we're there, and our links to Discord are in all those channels as well.
6060.
I can see the shadows look like you. I gotta forget, find something new. There's no going back for you and I. You and I. Don't know what you want, I need to know. Don't pick up the phone when I try to call. Tell me what is wrong or what is right. What is right. 'Cause now it's too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late, nah, nah. Now it's too late, nah, nah, nah. Too late.
welcome back to the stream. It's an absolute pleasure to be back for the Swiss stage qualifiers heading into the playoffs of the main event of the second qualifier. Unfortunately, with the conclusion of the third round, we've already seen our first eliminations out of the tournament. That is the likes of the UVG Screamers and the Lozzie Phantoms. But remaining perfectly balanced, we've also seen two teams qualify to that playoffs point as well. That is, of course, as you saw on stream, the SEA Dragons and the Buzzards as well. Psycho, this is crunch time now. It's very simple standings for everyone that remains. For those in the 2 and 1, a victory will see them qualify. And for the 1 and 2, it is going to be a fight away from elimination.
Foons, and yeah, moving into this series, Pegasus, Storm Shadows and Krakens, it's difficult to know what to make of them, particularly. I personally, going into this game, would actually be looking at the Krakens and thinking, you know what, they can give this a real good go.
Well, the Krakens have just given myself that idea throughout all of the qualifiers so far, but they do have the potential to take on this caliber of team. Of course, we saw them earlier in today's broadcast. They looked excellent, and as is fashion for a lot of these streams, of course, that was a relatively confident sweep with all three players playing at an extremely high consistency. Simple Bog wasn't playing in that matchup, but the remaining players of Poggy, Tyler, and Horizons simply didn't have a weak bone in that body.
Not one bit, and honestly, the series we watched from the Krakens earlier was inspiring. And I think we came into that series expecting it to be quite hotly contested. And I think in the green room, there was some debate as to which team outright was going to win. Krakens just dealt with it so comfortably, didn't they? And moving forward now, they're in a position to set themselves up very nicely, potentially, for a brilliant seed heading into that playoffs, if only they can get themselves across the line.
They, of course, being in this fourth round, have faced a slip towards their journey into getting into those top 8 spots, and that was at the hands of the SEA Dragons, which was still a series that went the full distance, which for me is a very impressive result to see. But on the opposite side, for the Storm Shadows, that was a 2-0 defeat, actually, to the SEA Dragons as well. So if we're using that as the litmus test, Kraken should be the favourites here.
I think it's too early to call, Pegasus. You've got me nervous. But as somebody who loves to see growth in this community and new talents emerging, the Royal Navy Krakens now have an opportunity to do something special. The RAF Storm Shadows, they just want to keep doing what's going oh so well for them.
And I mentioned Simple Bog before this series began. Of course, Horizons was playing in that very same spot, was their main offensive goal-scoring threats in that series as well. Now, with Bog returning to the pitch, an impact is waiting to be felt, but Tyler has continued right where he's left off on stream.
Tyler, definitely the most unknown factor for a lot of teams facing up against this Kraken side. You look at the likes of Horizons, you look at Stimple, you look at Poggy, you look at Horizons, and you think between the lots, there are some real threats, some legacy threats, the likes of Stimple Bog, the likes of Horizons, but Tyler is that sort of just undercover talent. Stimple squeezes in a second.
There's a pass in here from Tyler, and he does so well to just get himself out of the way to open up the door for Bog to even take that opportunity towards the near post. Krakens with a cracking start to the series thus far. 2 goals in just around 30 seconds. And the Storm Shadows side might be able to pick up one here. It's too high.
Samez now towards the corner. Reedy couldn't quite nab the boost, and Stimple Bog goes whizzing on by. It's a very low threat offered by the Royal Navy Krakens as they ping that ball back.
Right towards Samez. Off that left wall. Has to catch it for the second touch as a reacher, but action will take on a position off the crossbar. No player was full to jump too early. So when it came to catching the loose ball, you saw a double commit there, which has Simple Bog 20 less boost than he would like for this setup. Instead, has to take it all the way back, pick up the 100, hope that 50 goes towards a teammate. He's directed it well, but on the tertiary, it's Sammy's off that back wall with Reedy prevented by Poggy.
Great dunk, and it's another chance for Stimple. He's absolutely bostled the wide open net, and Poggy's going to have to make ends meet squeezing that ball towards the left-hand post, but it's small margins, but Kraken's absolutely on top.
You're starting to see a bit more pace coming from the Storm Shadows. That being said, Krakens haven't particularly slowed down themselves. This one coming right off the ceiling, falls towards action. It's a heavy ball, and that's only going to find Stimple Bog. Reedy over one, but Poggy will delicately connect. Tyler brazenly takes it off the corner. There's not going to be any further follow-ups here. Stimple Bog has to make the play work from deep. It's great pressure and possession found from Krakens, and even that 50 won't break it up.
Big pinch chance for Poggy. Look at it. It's rising above Samez's head. And it's actually gone the distance. He's played an absolute launcher of a javelin downfield. Samez flailing, flapping his arms to try and reach that one. To no avail.
Well, it was a fantastic goal. But as you would know from your freestyler background, bounces shouldn't count. I feel like I'll let him off for that one.
Pegasus, you can't be harsh. That was a piece of magic.
It was beautiful.
It was
Pure
glorious.
Beauty.
Krakens, I think you may have just delivered one of my favourite goals of the tournament so far, and I can just imagine all of the dolly cam cinematics from that.
Poor Sames. Down to action. Stamps it towards that right wall. Wants to get himself some dolly cam footage. Reedy's already up! It's a great way to bring themselves back into the game. It's a quick response of the ex-division. One goal broken down.
One goal broken down, but there's two more doors to be knocked. As Poggy is going to try and push this ball to the right-hand side. Tyler is there. They can only just throw it downfield and try and sustain possession in the long term. They're not eager to try and take close control. They're not eager to try and bait forward the opposition. All they want is to make sure they've got domination over the pitch. As Stimplebog now on the wall.
Oh, wants to follow, but Reedy was already up. The second touch, though, still so heavy in the Kraken's favour, though, action. And it's just a recycle from deep. Sames is unable to get that job done. It's constant turnovers in possession. The Krakens started off this game doing such a good job at keeping it amongst themselves, but with that extra bit of aggression, front forward, Rocket League that Storm Shadows have played ever since. That has started to change, so now it's Poggy with a clear-cut opportunity. Looks for the cut inside. That boost doesn't spawn either. It's calamitous, but still, they hold some control.
Nice play by Sames, but he needs to try and find a 50. Doesn't get the contact, and Reedy floating aimlessly, helpless as that ball gets fired over to his backboard. And the pressure still coming in waves from this Royal Navy Kraken's roster. They're cooking up a bit of a storm here in game one.
Oh, Tyler off this ceiling has an extra touch towards Simple Bog. Sames should have no troubles picking this ball up. 100 boost as well. We would be looking for the coast to coast. Poggy's having absolutely none of it. Slams it towards that backboard. Tyler can't finish the opportunity, but off this back wall provides another. Reedy tries to shut it down. It's Tyler on the reverse. Put yourself back into first gear to second to third to clear this one out. That was almost a disastrous counter-attack. Instead, they found their footing.
Pick Pegasus as your rally co-driver. He knows all the right gears in all the right places. And now Storm Shadows need to kick theirs into gear as they're really struggling to get a foothold. Action PB now in field. Tyler still comfortable on that near post backboard, and it's simply not a threat. You need to give a bit more against this Navy side.
Well, Poggy has already had this game secured with 5 seconds left on the clock and a 2-goal difference. It was a valiant effort from the Storm Shadows, but the Krakens came out swinging so early, and just as it felt like the footing was beginning to be found from Storm Shadows, too many minutes had passed. It was a bit of a dazing start to the game, to be completely honest with you, Psycho, and that's what I love so much about the later stages of the Swiss. They've already had those 3 rounds of competition. They both looked ready to go from the first kickoff.
Absolutely, and I am just in awe of how the Krakens didn't even make that game look close. And I think when we look back to the weeks gone by, and even the community qualifiers for this week as well, Pegasus, Storm Shadows, they breezed through their group stage. They made it look simple. They didn't drop a single game the entire community qualifiers, and there were some real stiff oppositions there. Moving forwards to the Swiss stage now, I think there's always going to be that doubt that creeps in if you're a side like the Storm Shadows, where you think we've had it so well for so long, this really is a bit of disruption now.
I mean, we speak about the pedigree of the name. We've put questions as well towards the new emerging names within the RAF family, whether this truly is the premier roster that they have to offer. Their token matches would suggest that this is the case. I feel like a round 4 qualification is actually the bare minimum for the top roster of an RAF side in history.
Well, we spoke about the history, and what's to come really is a mystery. Of course, we're on week 2 of 4 main events here in the Pro League Season 2. And these storylines, they really write themselves, Pegasus, but game 1 off to a lot more of a settled start.
Reedy can't bring this ball over. Opens up a chance for Poggy, but it was low boost to force this attack. It's a lot of reliance for the second and third to really take up the position. Tyler causing some disruption, but action from the back post moves himself back into position. Now it's Stimplebog from deep to start it up all over again. It's another very defensive start from the Storm Shadows, but with 2 goals conceded in the first 30 seconds last time, it's certainly an improvement.
Really easily could have got demoed there as third. Could have opened up a chance, but Royal Navy Krakens didn't spot it in time. Action PB now for the air dribble across the court. And it's a very loose touch from Poggy. It's going to invite a bit of pressure here, and here comes Reedy. Straight down the middle.
Oh.
It's a strike for the Storm Shadows.
Right down the heart. And that is going to be devastating for the Krakens. Such a good start to this game. It felt like a goal was inevitable, but that was not the net anyone was expecting.
1-0. And Storm Shadows, they found a goal in that last game, but was it a meaningful one? Maybe not for the morale of a team which had it all so good for all so long. Now they get to find some comfortability yet again.
Oh, Tyler gets it over Samez. And this is a crisp strike towards net, but credit given to Stimplebog as well. That read off the corner, it is perfect. It's a laser down the infield, straight towards his teammate. And Samez, you would have at least liked to see him jump for that strike, but that was really one of those blink and you'll miss it type link-ups.
It's difficult. You always want to sort of stay grounded in those situations as well, because it's just so hard to pre-jump and hope. You want to have a bit more security, and Samez is a player who sure loves a bit of that, but it really was a gorgeous team play from the Krakens. Off of that back corner, Samez now is going to launch one and test that backboard. Tyler for the counter-attack. Lovely flip reset caught over to the backboard, and Stimplebog just can't find the finish, but what a play that would have been.
Oh, you won't want to watch that one back, especially if this counter-attack is capitalized upon. The demo will certainly increase the chances. Tyler, low boost gets the clearance out, but action had stepped up high. Now has to take it back towards that sidewall. Already has lost his flip off the ceiling with the jumper, but it still goes back into that position for Reedy. These are the positions you have to take advantage of if you're Storm Shadows, and instead is Poggy from deep. The read is there from action, but Tyler on the follow-up ends up setting up Stimplebog. But time and time again, I believe Krakens are about to score, and I'm sent away every single time.
It was inevitable, and you could see as they pre-position high up that wall at the midfield line, it was an obvious launch downfield, and Storm Shadows had their back to the walls. They wanted to get aggressive, they wanted to get disruptive and add something that they've been lacking so far in the series. Punished for their efforts, Pig.
I must say, though, that is a pattern we've seen from the Krakens. It was in Series 1 as well. We saw a few clear-cut opportunities not finding the back of the net. This won't be one of them. Returning from his hiatus, immediately providing an impact. Can Simple Bog be Kraken's qualifier?
Dilza T is going to be taking a deep breath because he's 2 minutes away, potentially, of being able to qualify for that playoff with an incredibly strong performance here. The 2-1 match. Samez now to push that one to the backboard. Reedy towards the target. Blocked away it goes as Stimplebog tries to dance downfield, but Action slowing it down a little bit.
And now has the opportunity with all the space he has to find a player on the inside. Reedy's there, but just doesn't make a connection, and neither does Samez. And Simple doesn't either. My eyes deceiving me. Is the ball poisoned? Action finally takes a sip.
Oh, it's a dangerous one, though. Tyler, look at his positioning. He's polar opposite, positioning-wise, on the field to his teammates. They've really opened up the players. Another shot comes through. The infield ball spotted by Poggy. And it's a mammoth touch from Tyler to squeeze that in.
See, how does he score that one, though? That's what I don't understand, Psycho. He had the open chance. Of course, that one was on the half terminal, albeit no defender there, but that redirect, I look at that as the harder opportunity. Krakens make sure that every single goal is highlight worthy.
It's a good effort from Reedy, who has said that he's been struggling a little bit in this game, just in terms of some of the tech coming into the table, but I think it's fair to say Storm Shadows, they've looked beaten universally across the board in this particular series as they're taunting a potential fifth.
Oh, very, very close. Instead, now a second winds up for the Storm Shadows. That was so close to going above the bar. Instead, Action PB will be credited with the second goal. I doubt there'll be much celebration. Still 47 seconds of pure concentration required for the Storm Shadows to find the ultimate pocket of play.
Fake kickoff demo. What's it going to be? It's going to be back to basics. It's a launch downfield by Reedy, and it's a difficult ball to control for Poggy. He's done so well to get back towards it and get that secondary dunk, as now Reedy eyeing up that 100 boost, trying to support Action as he likes down this left-hand side. No contact found as Tyler gets the flick.
Oh, Summers is on the back foot here still. Was gifted that first touch for second 50's great, but now resources all favour Poggy and uses the most of it as well with those two touches. Tyler back in towards the area, keeps those challenges coming. The seconds are coming down, but the Krakens aren't done yet. Off that back wall, Tyler to squeeze in. Another is denied by Reedy. Simple Bog has had a few moments to add to the score sheet. A hat-trick is denied from that save from Action. Poggy's first goal is prevented as well. And with this ball hitting the ground, the Krakens qualify to the top 8. And I cannot believe we live in an existence where this is being said. But Storm Shadows are now deservedly in round 5 of Swiss.
Oh, and it's harsh, isn't it? And if we look at the journey that the Storm Shadows have had so far, they've not had it easy by any stretch of the imagination, Pegasus. They've ran into the SEA Dragons. They've ran into the Royal Navy Krakens at the peak of their possible performance. And that is what happens when you get just a little too comfortable. But moving forward towards that series number 5, I really wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see some more bite left in this incredibly strong RAF roster.
Yeah, of course. You never want to count out the RAF. I'm very fascinated to see how this one will end for them. There is potential, though, for friendly fire in that 5th round, with the Typhoons getting swept by the Kestrels and the Jackdaws as well, getting swept by the likes of the Merlins. This is going to be a dramatic end to the Swiss.
Oh, it is just lining up so perfectly, isn't it? And the Mustangs 2-0 on the Sparrowhawks. I think that one's a little bit more expected from the round 4 matchup there. BAE's Merlins 2-0 on Jackdaws as well. So that's Jackdaws eliminated, but in a decent point scoring position, especially given that's their first ever appearance in a Swiss stage, Pegasus, and, well, a main event offered in the Pro League.
It's incredible, and it's what this entire tournament is about. We saw so many fantastic stories during the first ever season of BFBS. You think about the likes of Boost Over Ball, even Resurgence and Omnia, with some roster changes as well, completely changing their run. But looking at the bracket, it feels like this is going to be a very tough time, especially for the RAF, which has been the cream of the crop service for such a long time, because I've also just seen that the Mustangs are also going to be fighting about in that 2-2. So 3 RAF options. Surely we get one of them playing the other here.
Oh, you'd think so. You really, really would think so. There has to be a derby coming out of this. And I guarantee you, there ain't no playing about when it comes to this seeding, Pegasus. Wherever the coins fall is where they fall. And for some teams, it's going to be upsetting. It's going to be heartbreaking. For others, they're going to be rejoicing. There are still a few results left to come through from this particular round 4. I believe the only one remaining, actually now, the Royal Navy Tridents against the RAF Harriers. Now, that is one of the lower matches as well. So whoever is going to be the bearer of bad news for that one will be moving forward towards that round 5.
Wow, I'm just looking down this bracket as well. We've seen a great showing, frankly, from the British Army, of course, with the Buzzards and the Falcons already qualifying. The Royal Navy Krakens have already made it through. Of course, the SEA Dragons as well. With all of these RAF teams heading into the 5th round, it feels like token matches are just going to be played solely on this pitch. But the final series has been reported. It is going to be the Tridents with a 2-0 versus the Harriers. So that will be the first fall of an RAF side. And the Tridents, again, are going to be given that round 5 opportunity, just like they were given last time, Psycho. Maybe the story can end happier for them.
Yeah, and the Tridents, I think, is one of those, again, just undercover rosters which people will look at and just sort of think, we don't really know what they're going to bring to the table. And of course, it does feature the new Royal Navy Rocket League lead, Matteo himself. A massive thanks to him for stepping up to the plate and being available to put all these teams together as well. Pegasus, he has been joined by Arcane, Arid, and Mr. Blue for this event. And honestly, they are a very well-rounded roster, just in terms of the individual capabilities. What we often see with these teams, I think, is you have those real sort of star players. You have the ones that you just look at on a broadcast and you think that is the one to watch. For Tridents, it is just so unbelievably spread across the board.
And I always like a team like that. It puts a lot less responsibility on one player as well to necessarily perform, because then you can have 2 players that are more than capable of picking up any of that slack when it's required. And I like that teams like this, often I find them play with a bit more team play as well, just to keep that balance in all of their rotation. You never really have a preference there. It's whoever's quicker to the ball, whoever's in that better spot, let them take it. However, sometimes, especially when I see those unbalanced rosters, you get a little bit of a shake of the fundamentals, which definitely can cause issues.
Definitely so. And I think as we sort of get prepared and we brace ourselves for what is to come in round 5, we're going to need a little bit of a breather, Pegasus. And we'll have Danny Boy to come and join you for that final series of the day. You do not want to miss it. Stay right here. We'll see you after this short break.
welcome back to the stream. You're with us for round 4 as we saw another Royal Navy side qualify for the top 8 in the playoff stages of this second qualifier. However, as we enter into round 5, the stage was set for a bunch of RAF potential clashes in this final round. And Danny Boy, that is exactly what we were delivered. It is crunch time for our second Swiss.
Well, it certainly is here, and Joe, there's a part of me disappointed the same way, because there was 4 RAF teams. There was always going to be a guarantee, but you know, we may as well say the matchups as they are here, and you know, let people debate here which derby they would have wanted here. RAF Typhoons has ended up with the Royal Navy's Rayon Titans. The RAF Storm Shadows will be playing the British Army's Merlins. But the RAF derby that has worked out, of course, through the Swiss system is the Mustangs versus the Nighthawks. Now, I didn't think that was going to be the derby. I thought it was going to be Storm Shadows and Typhoon, personally, myself. But, you know, what a night here, because you sat there and said the point as bluntly as it was here, and sort of going, one of the top 8 sides is not going to make it. You could have 3 of the RAF sides here not make it at all.
That would be unbelievable, and especially if that Storm Shadows Merlins match was to go towards the Merlins way, that would definitely be a shock to the system in terms of how I predict these 3 series specifically. But the Mustangs and the Nighthawks, there's definitely a bit of an internal conflict there between those 2 rosters, which has the opportunity to unfold on the pitch as well. And I couldn't pick a better time for that to finally have the fuse reach the gunpowder than round 5. Qualification or elimination. The stakes are simple, but a best of 3 is brutal.
It certainly is, and especially with old players and the old loggerheads going at it, because there is rivalry right through, even down to the players on this one, Pegasus. And you know, the return of the legs of Trinity, taking a year out, used to be the top end side of the RAF Storm Shadows back in Insomnia. You'd be talking like I-67, 68, give or take. Then you have the likes of Deromas here, used to be on the Shadows and suddenly move across into it. So plenty of time has passed, but not as you described the gunpowder. It will be fireworks, but why talk about it when we can see it?
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited for this upcoming matchup to go underway. The players seemed raring and ready to go to get into this series as well. And I will say that one of the players, particularly of the Nighthawks, was very excited to have this one unfold on stream. So this is definitely the matchup of the 5th round to have on the broadcast. It is an inter-services clash between the RAF. It's the Mustangs versus the Nighthawks. A spot at top 8's on the line.
It's going to be a true word and classic of the derbies. And unfortunately, we nearly had a goal to set the tone already. And you know what? Per Stelios and the Alexis Cedric of their management team are going to have to hold a few players back here. We've got one already.
And this was one of our real LAN contenders during the last season of BFBS. Deromas played perhaps his best Rocket League at the final time of asking. That should have set him up here for Season 2. But round 5 Swiss is a fearful spot to stand.
Don't forget as well, AFI as well attended with the RAF Shadows at the time as former roster, so he reached every LAM setting on the 2025 calendar was the Deromas. A few people on this pitch cannot say that. A few people in the RAF community cannot at all, as that shot rattles slightly too high. Beale is at the back line with no boost, but there is no pressure on it.
Tries to offload to someone with a greater boost count, but there's a bit of a tripping on feet between Subi and Trinity. Deromas will take that shot from deep, and already within the first minute, he's on for a hat-trick.
I hope you have a match ball spare, BFBS, because Deromas wants it, and he wants everybody to sign it. Unfortunately, I don't have a Sharpie at the moment, so I might have to borrow somebody's.
Deromas has tried to find a place where he can have that permanent marker etched into a main team spot. He's bounced around as a substitute for a few RAF rosters. But this time now, part of the main team, trying to find a stable spot for the rest of the season. So far, that former Rising Star is shining.
I don't think Rising Star is a fair word to describe him, one of the most established players really in the community. And Napsy, who has got that one in. And if you sat there and told me this is going to be a 3-0 scoreline in 90 seconds, Pegasus, I would have called you a liar.
I mean, there's a reason that we picked this very series to be on the broadcast. We felt like this one would be close either way. We did know that everything would be thrown into these games. However, that has started off relatively one-sided.
And this is sort of the game as well, when you have that sense of adrenaline or, you know, a grit or a gripe, you want to sort of make a point onto it, and sometimes you can get blindsided by it here. And unfortunately, it has produced here a moment of doubt here for the Nighthawks. They were sort of the second/third best team. The Shadows at the RAF sits the fourth. I mean, the Mustangs not even in the top 4 in their own ranking system at the moment.
That might be changed if these results go their way, but it's the first drop of blood spilled by the Mustangs as Trinity just finds the ball in the box. It's set up so nicely there from Subi, and with a low boost defense as the first call to action, that left Aromas in a very tough position to get that one out.
Is it going to be 3-3 here, do you think, here, Pegasus? Are we going to see this lead slip by?
Oh, I wouldn't want to even dare to attempt to put a caster curse on this game. I'm going to let it play out. I'm going to see how this can all unfold. Trinity could make some magic happen. Subi, though, is stopped by Napsy. That pinch between himself and Doromus will give them some forward pressure. They have to make sure these challenges are calculated.
Well, I'll tell you this for nothing, when I'm doing a World Cup prediction, Doromus was second overall. Didn't read that play. Didn't see it happening. And I'll tell you this right now, Pig, it's slipping.
It really is. You mentioned the 3-3, and that is going from pipe dream to reality with the pace they've found. It's 2 goals in relatively quick succession as well. And that's exactly how the Mustangs was able to get their score sheet so high. This has been definitely a game that has ebbed and flowed between offensive pressure for Doromus. This one won't find the back of the net. An extra coursing tidal wave is still yet to be found. It could be Napsy, especially with that demo opening up for space. Doromus from deep. It's prevented from Trinity. And Subi doesn't get that touch, but Bell is positioned well at 50. Being strong is crucial. The dribble's even better.
I thought Stelios just slipped into the broadcast booth there. The ebbs and flows, as he rightly be saying that. And unfortunately, I don't think a setup will be as supportive for it. But this one, mind you, by Beal. Good touch to get past 2. And Trinity to take over, surely. He's done his job. Will continue, mind you, off to the back wall. Subi, you know what, one of the most quietest players you'll ever meet, but it's the subtleties of his game. It's going to be the difference maker here, but he has not got onto the ball here to give that sort of killer pass.
Stevens not going to find a pass either. Instead, straight towards an orange car. Belvo does it get a 50. It's left completely open. And Aromas couldn't crop up an easier way to complete his hat trick. Pure bravery in the strike, and that actually looked like it was recognized. No attempt at the 50. It's a great final change in plan.
There we have it. Great moments, but unfortunately, it's not great enough. Subi, that was cheeky.
How dare us believe that this was ever going to be a one-sided series. They had us fooled in that first 90 seconds. But it's a quick response from Subi. Nothing quiet about that goal explosion.
I don't like it, though.
Such a critic. Tell you what, any supporter of the Nighthawks will not care what they decided to equip in the garage. As long as they get to see it, they're going to have to see it one more time. they want any hopes of an overtime at a first game win. Instead, the Mustangs from deep can't let that ball trickle through from DeRomas. It's very low boost of a line, but Bell's in an exceedingly awkward position. Got 100 boost and a crisp first touch. We'll see that pendulum swing. 50's good in the center, but 25 seconds this play needs to pick up.
Well, Trinity, it's in the blocks here. DeRoma's got his touch. Bale's on it and he's trying to skim it. Not happening either. Trinity to put a bit of pace on. Net's open too wide. And unfortunately doesn't creep on in. Bale sets it up. Subi with the shot, but it's big Stephen Andrews. Denies up the line. Robbed up an OT.
Oh, but hold on. Subi on the infield. Trinity is there. This time it's Nabsy to block. A late, great defensive effort from the Mustangs secure their match point spot in the derby.
That's arguably the best save of the competition.
Double save from Stephen Andrews, to be very clear, but that first one in a vacuum alone definitely would have taken gold.
You know what, we talk about, you know, all the goal scoring and the capabilities of it, but the defense side of the game sometimes get overlooked at it. And when you slip, let's not forget here, a 3-0 lead here that the RAF Mustangs did have here, Pegasus. You could have guilty to be thinking of it, you know, they're going to be essentially losing this game because of the way they were playing there.
Yeah, it felt like it was going to be a complete crash and burn with Nighthawks picking up those goals, especially in such quick time. You didn't really see that being a pattern, that change. It looked like the Mustangs had completely broken down, but you've got to give those players credit. As soon as the Romas saw that one opportunity to catch it on the outside, you felt the full confidence of the team improve for those final minutes. And even when they were getting chances going against them from the Nighthawks, they still kept that degree of calm. And as we saw, I mean, in those final 10 seconds, that was crucial.
Well, certainly is. And Joe Watt here, it's those situations when you have the moment and it's, you know, make or break here in terms of what you can deliver onto it. But let's even focus even just in the midpoint of the game here, where Trinity essentially got the goal in, and essentially, I'm not saying carrying his team here. I don't want to inflate the man at the moment here because, you know, there's a few people the RAF has put him on a pedestal, rightly so, by the way. But you cannot be sitting there and sort of going reliant on one player. It's Subi who we normally look at, and he was not there for about 2 minutes worth of the gameplay.
Yeah, and that's not what you want to be told going into the second game, but you definitely need that splash of cold water. You don't have another game to really fix yourself up, take some time to work onto a different strategy here. The makings of good gameplay were there. The fundamentals were certainly in place. Now it's just all about the execution. You cannot allow the Mustangs to have that many godly saving opportunities, because as much as we're talking about those defensive chances, Danny, I'm thinking back to a chance about 45 seconds left on the clock. There were two shots from two different players, one rattled off the crossbar, one's rattling off the backboard. That should have been the equalizer. That should have been OT already secured.
It's a fine margins. We've sat there and looked at it previously beforehand, and I don't want to drag the history book out too far and, you know, bore people to sleep here. But there was a matchup already previously with these two sides, and unfortunately, the RAF Mustangs did not favorably come out on as the victors in that particular lineup due to the similar fact, as you mentioned, did not put the chances away and unfortunately defensively crumbled in the latter stages. So from my eyes looking at it, and Stelios was here as well too, they would say it's a much improved side going forward, and surprisingly the Nighthawks were the side to slip up here.
I'm just having a little bit of a gander at the points that both of these teams have so far, currently sitting on a total of 10, with each of which having a 7-8 performance during the last qualifiers, and of course this being their 9th to 11th spot. Not only would this victory put a team ahead into the top 8 and knock out a team that was there before, this also completely steals that spot on the overall leaderboard as well. So much on the line. But for the Nighthawks, they have to kick into gear now. It's match point for the Mustangs.
And just like that there, teleported right on to the pitch itself. But who will unfortunately be vaporized in the sweat here, because there is no room for that error. And Bale, not able to put that one on target, was tipped away, of course, through the defensive player. But just like that there, both sides sent off here. There was a bit of a delay here, but it has not impacted either of the two sides here.
No, they've still kept that pace on going. And the early start that the Mustangs had before is not going to be allowed this time. Almost flipped to the other side. Instead, Napsy pulls off the save. Bell is forced to send that out deep. Self-setup heads towards the backboard. But Andrews gets a booming clearance out.
Subi, it's not the great second touch, really, but recovers, and it's a double commit. Beal has to essentially back away to the corner, and he's trying to go for the psycho. And I'll tell you this here, he's a big fan of the man himself here, idolizes him. It's the only thing that's missing from Beal's bedroom is a picture of the man himself. I don't know if BFBS is going to produce the massive forehead A4 page, but can we get an update on that, actually?
Yeah, please keep us updated in the Discord, in the chat. Anyway, that we can and have available. Trinity off the ceiling. Napsy available for this chance. Stephen Andrews is going to have to try and find a passage outside, but that first touch was uninspiring, as is this double commit. Bale now has an opportunity to pounce. Those few bumps are going to open up the space for Subi. But with desperation off the back of that demo, Deromas has been given that clear escape.
It's a nice bit of play by Subi. Needs the follow, and Trinity not on target. And Jeromas has actually played that far too safely. It might cost him. Great save once again by Steven.
Oh! And it was almost a second yet again. But Trinity tears through from deep. Straight into that top corner. You asked for power. You asked for placement. It was the former that caused success.
At this point here, they might be dipping into the old Robot Wars.
Hello?
Cliches here. Power, aggression, damage and control. Missing the odd demo here and now. But my word, here has the Nighthawks simply turned the screw. The pressure has been there. And unfortunately, the Mustangs have to play from their final third here.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some mind tricks on the side of Mustangs. Well, that's not to reference Matilda. Trinity on the inside. Subi is on the back foot there. Can't turn towards that play. Bale wanted to stay defensively set as well as the only player with boost. But Mustangs still have a chance to build up. But it's wasteful yet again. Oftentimes not getting themselves out of defense. It's these booming clears constantly finding an orange car.
Nothing wrong with a booming clear. I won't have anything against that.
Like to see a bit more. If they are going to boom it, they've got to grab some real power. They're not getting behind any of the players. They're trying to boom it over. And with that, it is so much forward energy and momentum for the Nighthawks, who have the mechanics that that's not what you want to give them oftentimes. There was the backboard though for the Mustangs. There's a rare chance, but a shot just doesn't have the power that we saw in the game before.
Napsy for the second phase of play. Stevens up, Jeroma's up, and it could be a quick, swift counter, and it had to be him.
You just felt for the Mustangs. This was an opportunity that they had to capitalize off of. It had been such a rare chance. You saw the names in lights. Unfortunately, that shrouded the comms, fully tunnel visioned. And what remained was just a clear-cut path for Trinity.
Jeromas tips it over. That may be a third goal to go against them. And it really is night and day. Beal grabs 1-2. And just like this here, we've been robbed of deciding games all night long. We might actually have one.
And it would be the ultimate way for it to happen in round 5 at the very latest convenience, with the highest punishment and the highest reward at the very end. And of course, it's an RAF derby. Of course, it's perhaps the greatest RAF derby we currently have behind the scenes. Subi, touch high, but Trinity's not going to reach that one. DeRomus might get one for the road. 59 seconds to dictate whether it's worth a little more.
I'll find out. It's an old tricky question, that, but the potential of a 3 RAF teams losing in round 5 sadly won't be happening for everybody else's joy and glee, as the Merlins from the British Army's fallen to the Storm Shadows 2-0, as Napsy is trying to do the unthinkable, but unfortunately it was improbable at best.
Well, we saw the Nighthawks try to fight back from a 3-0 deficit. They now feel the opposite end of that matchup, but it's with much less time on the clock and in what has been a lot more of a convincing game from them as well. A chance to make it forward. Trinity doesn't have any passing options on the inside. Subi will let this one go off the back wall, gets that read. Napsy already anticipated that was going to follow. Stephen Andrews has the ropeness to follow this first chance, and instead Subi with a clear and a 50 will bring down the time.
And Jeromas is up, Bale. Likewise, back wall has been read. One big boom in clear. We will have a decider in Trinity. Oh, Trinity, I love this. The Dark Artist coming in this one.
Dirty, dirty dog. That's what we like to see. You've got to be an animal in these final games. There's the bark, there's the bite, everything you could call for. And that rounds off what was an excellent performance from themselves. A save, but most importantly, 2 goals added to the tally. And they were the 2 that made the difference between themselves and the Mustangs.
You know, there's some times you really do love the brilliance of a player just to sit there and just, you know, remove the game essentially out of your opposition's control. Just to sit there and it sounds like the old 1v1 players back in the day and sort of going, we've got the goals, you have to come here, and frankly, you're doing nothing here to intimidate me. Why should I bother?
If anyone has seen First Killer versus Aza Patos in the North American playoffs, that gives you a perfect example for some recent usage, though Trinity might just be stealing that title. But we head into Game 3 now, Danny. 5 minutes of regulation Rocket League to decide which RAF roster is worthy of that playoff spot. It's going to have to be a lower bracket run. This is already the start of a recovery in their Swiss stage. But as we've alluded to, there is so much more at stake here for the individual players sprinkled across the pitch. This stream has been an absolute blast, ladies and gentlemen, but it's time for the final game of the day.
And it will be Trinity who looks to get the personal sets of grudge matches, to get one on the belt itself, notched right onto it. But it is Bale continuing with the 4th phase of play here for the Nighthawks, and they have not got this one cleanly out by the Mustangs, but nonetheless, breathing space at last.
Well, Subi tries to take some away from DeRomas. That bump doesn't land. The early jump is forced, but it still falls in the Mustangs' favour. Napsy shows a lot of patience. We saw dribble attempts in the game beforehand, both of which were followed by the word almost when referring to the goals. That will be another one added. Subi across the top. DeRomas has to make that read. Stephen Andrews is going for the very same. But those extra few touches will leave that to be unpunished.
And it's the longest of the 2 games we previously saw going goalless as well. The defence is essentially smartened up. I think both sides have decided to bring their tuxedo here for the final game.
Oh! Great fake there coming from DeRomas. Unfortunately, there was no end product. Subi won't show any for themselves either. Instead, there was another big backboard clearance from the Mustangs. That's becoming a bit of a characteristic in their gameplay. We're talking about this series at large. Subi, what a high play, has the reset, doesn't get the double tap, but Trinity is in the right spot, but that shot is nowhere near towards the target. It's going out for a throw-in.
Well, unfortunately, the throw-in didn't have anything special, but the infield pass wasn't too bad. Bale scarpers all the way back because Trinity was dangling his little legs up the wall, and unfortunately, like Humpty Dumpty shattered the eggshell. And then, mind you, once again, rattling here the side of the wall. But eventually, you just have to realise that the infield pass needs to be whipped in with a bit of angle.
Oh, Trinity, that's an awkward first touch! But it's legitimised by the shot of Subi. Which card do you look for? Two takes towards the skies. Napsy's caught between two minds. And DeRomas feels he's just got to send himself forward. He knows that strike is going to come with power. But that crossbar here falls finally against them.
Now, if you're the neutral, this is what you love. Now, the Mustangs must get another goal and send it essentially against the Nighthawks. And Stephen Andrews is one great save, not good enough. Subi grabs the second one. And is it just going to be a game that has essentially run out of the firework?
Whipped, flipped and scrambled. Mustangs have had all of the play go against them in these previous two games. And that's all come off the back of a huge recovery from the Nighthawks. It's unleashed an extra beast in them. The first game was the stick poked, and now the Bears got their claws out.
Let's see if there's any grizzle on this one as DeRomas moves that one unfortunately too wide, and Stephen lashing at the ball here. No real power or accuracy onto it, and DeRomas jumped almost like a madman possessed here. You have to be a little bit patient here. It's only a 2-0 deficit.
And the Mustangs have had showings of that grizzly ice on the goal line when you're talking about the likes of Stephen Andrews. He's the only player to actually record a save for the Mustangs roster thus far, and that's 4 total. More defensive responsibility has to be called upon DeRomas and Napsy. And that feels like an insane focus when they've still got a minimum of 4 goals now to find, thanks to Subi's hat-trick.
Yeah, he was quiet, but the quiet man having the last words, and it wasn't really a whisper either.
And it's echoed 3 blooming times in this 5th game. 1 minute 40. Heading towards double-digit time of Game 5 of Round 5 of Swiss. Mustangs, what do you have left? This might be all you leave towards the second qualifier. Never mind the Mustangs, and Nighthawks still have more.
You know what? If you're the RAF Mustang, they'd be sitting there with a white little flag and saying, please, please stop. Not going to happen. Not in this matchup.
I cannot believe how this series has unfolded. You could suggest that the danger signs were there in Game 1 with that 3-0 lead, almost falling into an opposing deficit. But with the recovery of the Mustangs, it appeared that they were taking that into the second game. But what we didn't consider is Nighthawks had plenty more gears to go. And now they are zooming clear into the sunset. And the Mustangs are all with a very bitter taste of dirt in their mouths.
It just shows you when you're the old school type of player and legacy to the name as well, the likes of Trinity. Former, of course, the top RAF side back in the day with Migra and Hopper. You may not know those names, unfortunately, 2 retired players, and now in today's game, played actually last season, Migra under UVG as a temporary stand-in, I believe. But Trinity, he hasn't lost it.
Back down. Pumped by Subi. Napsy is thrown away. Stephen Andrews, not bumped by anyone. Effect was still felt, and these will be the final bits of play to be seen from the Mustangs in this second qualifier. It comes rather early. The first outside appearance from the top 8. And with that, the Nighthawks steal that spot in ecstatic fashion.
Well, I think quite literally there's no seat like yours. And the Nighthawks has unfortunately put the Mustangs off theirs. Brilliant bit of a gameplay. You have to give full credit here to both sides because they made the match as interesting as it was for a derby. But, is it wrong to sit here and ask for a best of 5, best of 7 between these two sides?
It's tough to say because I mean, just look at the momentum that the Nighthawks found in those last 2 games. They looked completely unstoppable. I'm not sure a best of 7, a best of 9 would have been able to prevent that performance they started to pick up. The Mustangs, they looked battered and they looked bruised. They looked scarred from that second game. And, well, they need at least a space of 1 full qualifier now to recover from those and come back stronger.
Well, I certainly do here, but we might as well touch on the RAF triumph in terms of news here because the Typhoons has certainly recovered here, but it was nearly a mishap, mind you, in game 2 and 1 here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a devastator for the Tridents. Typhoons managed to take that victory in game 3, so that's one that went to the very bitter end. That was a matchup between 2 rosters that had came very close actually to getting eliminated at the Swiss stage. For Trident, it's another round 5 elimination in a follow-up qualifier. But the Storm Shadows, they didn't have the greatest day at the office. I think that's fair to say, Danny. But ultimately, they had one aim at the end of the day, and that was to qualify to top 8. They've achieved that now with a 2-0 versus British Army's Merlins.
Well, I certainly have, and this is not guaranteed yet. This is just me roughly working out here. So the admins in the background, I'm sure, will be looking forward to it. But, that's potentially your top 4 here of a British Army, derby once again here with Buzzards and Falcons and an SA Dragons versus the Royal Navy Krakens in the top 4 type of. And you look at that and you go, do you know what here? I think the Royal Navy should be aiming for a grand final here.
I'd love to see it. I really would love to see it. And that would be a very historic performance from them. If they were able to pull it off, it would set themselves up very nicely for the rest of the season and would be a vast improvement compared to what we saw in that first qual.
Well, it certainly is here, but as much as we could sit here and talk about the Swiss stage and potentially, of course, here the essentially the top 8 performers for, of course, the next broadcast here, of course, the BFBS. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye here, Pike.
It is, and you will have to wait until that playoff brackets if you want to see any more BFBS Pro Rocket League action. However, if you would like some more doses of BFBS, of course, there are the other socials, the likes of the TikTok and the Twitter that you can follow as well. Your short form content is all packaged up nicely on the TikTok. But of course, if you want to see some extended podcasts, I believe YouTube is the place to head towards. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was it for the Swiss stage. On your screens, it was myself, Sir Pegasus, alongside Danny and Psycho. We've also had Tangerine on the production for today. And we hope to see you all for the next stream. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to follow. We'll see you all next time.
Hey, you're lagging. What are you doing?
Good enough can cost you the game. So stop settling. Wifinity is built for real life on base, so you can game without compromise. Hosted somewhere new? Take your Wi-Fi with you, no hassle. Get fast, reliable Wi-Fi with Wifinity. Use code BFBS50 to get 50% off the first 3 months.
I can see the shadows look like you. I gotta forget, find some